Trust your confusion. It is often the first alarm. Some people do not overpower you. They tilt the room. They make your reality feel negotiable. You have felt that pressure before. The conversation ends and somehow you are defending yourself. That is not always conflict. Sometimes it is quiet manipulation. Today, you will learn 8 signs that expose it. You will also learn how to stop feeding it. And the most dangerous sign rarely sounds aggressive. Manipulation usually hides behind normal moments. A joke, a favor, a worried tone, a sudden silence, a tiny twist. It works because your brain wants harmony, certainty, and connection, so it searches for peace before it searches for truth. Here's your first offensive insight. When you feel rushed to explain yourself, slow the pace before you answer. A manipulator often wins by controlling tempo, not volume, and speed is where your boundaries usually get bypassed. Watch for this, because the next sign often arrives wearing concern instead of hostility. The first sign is guilt that appears on command whenever you say no. You set one reasonable limit and suddenly you're cast as selfish, cold, ungrateful, or dramatic. The goal is not understanding. The goal is to make your boundary feel morally wrong. This works because many people would rather feel burdened than feel like the bad person. So the manipulator ties your kindness to compliance, and your empathy starts working against you. In real life, it sounds like, after everything I do for you, this is how you respond. Or, I guess I just care more than you do, delivered softly enough to avoid looking controlling. The defense is simple, but not easy. Separate their disappointment from your responsibility. A healthy person can dislike your boundary without turning it into a trial about your character. Try this response. I hear that you're upset, but my answer is still no. No extra essay, no courtroom defense, just clarity. If they keep escalating guilt after you stay respectful, you are learning more from their reaction than their words. And the second sign gets even harder to spot because it sounds like memory instead of pressure. The second sign is when they keep editing reality until you start doubting your own mind. They deny what they said, minimize what happened, or insist you are too sensitive to trust your interpretation. Notice the pattern. Your certainty shrinks while their certainty grows, even when the facts are simple. That imbalance is the point, because confused people are easier to direct than confident ones. Gaslighting does not always look theatrical. Sometimes it is just relentless correction with a smile. You mention a hurtful comment, and they answer, that never happened, or you always twist things. Over time, the issue stops being their behavior and becomes your memory, tone, or emotional stability. Here's what's really happening. They are moving the spotlight off the act and onto your perception. Your defense is documentation. Write down what was said, save the text, note the date, and trust patterns more than one polished denial. Then answer from your reality. We remember this differently, and I'm not continuing the argument on that basis. When someone gets angry that you keep receipts, pay attention. The third sign is quieter, and that is exactly why it slips past so many people. The third sign is intensity that arrives long before trust has had time to earn it. They praise you fast, need you fast, and create a false sense of rare connection almost immediately. At first, it feels flattering, because everyone wants to feel chosen, understood, and special. But real trust grows through consistency, while manipulation often grows through acceleration. They push instant closeness, then use that closeness to demand access, loyalty, or constant reassurance. In dating, it can sound like, I've never met anyone like you, on day 2, followed by pressure on day 5. In friendships or work, it becomes overpromising, oversharing, and then quietly expecting emotional debt in return. Watch the mismatch between the warmth and the timeline. When the feelings they announce are bigger than the evidence, slow down. You do not owe full access to someone just because they created emotional fireworks. A grounded response is, I like where this is going, and I want to let it develop naturally. If respect disappears the moment you reduce speed, the intensity was probably a tool, not a gift. Stay with me because the next sign hides inside everyday help. The fourth sign is generosity that arrives with invisible strings attached. They do favors you did not ask for, then quietly convert those favors into leverage later. This is how control can dress itself as kindness. The favor creates a ledger in their mind, and eventually they present you with the bill. Suddenly, your independence looks rude because they did so much. You may hear, "I was only trying to help," right after they override your wishes or your plan. The deeper tactic is subtle. If they can make you feel indebted, they can make you hesitate. You hesitate to disagree. You hesitate to leave. You hesitate to choose yourself. The defense is to name the exchange clearly and early. Say, "I appreciate the offer, but I'm not looking for help with that." Or, "Thank you, but I can't agree to extra expectations that were never discussed." Healthy generosity does not require hidden repayment. It leaves you free, not cornered. If you've caught yourself overlooking this because it looked nice, you're not alone. Tell me below. And the fifth sign is one many people mistake for chemistry. The fifth sign is inconsistency, that keeps you chasing the version of them you saw at the beginning. One day they are warm, attentive, and validating, and the next they become cold, vague, or unavailable. That swing creates emotional gambling, and gambling is sticky because your brain keeps waiting for the reward to return. You stop asking, "Is this healthy?" and start asking, "How do I get back to the good part?" That shift is dangerous because now they control the climate and you keep adjusting to survive it. In text messages, it looks like sudden intimacy followed by silence right when you feel secure. In families or teams, it looks like approval that appears only when you fall back in line. Here's how you take your power back. Measure people by consistency, not by occasional intensity. Anyone can be wonderful in selected moments. Character shows up in the pattern between those moments. Ask yourself one hard question: do I feel stable around this person, or merely relieved when tension pauses? Relief is not the same thing as safety. The next sign can trap even strong people because it turns your empathy into a weapon against you. The sixth sign is when they flip the story so completely that the person harmed ends up comforting the person who caused the harm. You bring up a real issue, and suddenly they are the wounded one, the misunderstood one, the unfairly attacked one. This is a powerful deflection because compassionate people hate feeling cruel, even when they are simply being honest. So the conversation drifts away from accountability and towards soothing their reaction to being confronted. Before long, your original concern is buried under their tears, outrage, or accusations of disloyalty. Watch for the sequence. You raise a specific behavior, they skip the behavior, and they attack the fact that you raised it. At work, that can sound like, "Wow, I can't believe you'd question my intentions after all these years." In relationships, it can sound like, "I'm the one hurting now because you clearly think I'm a terrible person." Your defense is to keep returning to the behavior, not the emotional storm around it. Say, "I'm talking about what happened, not about whether you want to see yourself as good." If they refuse that lane, end the conversation and revisit only when accountability becomes possible. There is still one tell that gives manipulative people away almost every time, and most viewers miss it. The seventh sign is when they subtly separate you from other perspectives. They question your friends, mock your support system, or make outside advice seem disloyal, naive, or dangerous. This matters because manipulation gets weaker the moment reality enters from another voice. A controlling person knows that comparison exposes distortion, so they work to become your loudest source of truth. Sometimes it is obvious, sometimes it sounds protective. They don't really get you. Your family is filling your head. Our issue should stay between us. Notice how isolation rarely begins with a locked door. It begins with a planted doubt. The less you check your experience against trustworthy people, the easier it becomes to normalize the abnormal. Your defense is intentional outside contact. Keep one grounded person in the loop, especially when a relationship starts feeling confusing, secretive, or emotionally expensive. You do not need everyone's opinion, but you do need reality beyond the person pressuring you. If someone truly respects you, they will not fear your access to support. The eighth sign is the most revealing because it appears the moment you stop cooperating. The eighth sign is punishment for boundaries. The instant you say no, they withdraw affection, go silent, mock you, smear you, or create small consequences meant to train you. This is where manipulation becomes easiest to identify, because the mask slips when access is reduced. A respectful person may feel frustrated by your limit, but they do not punish you for having one. A manipulative person treats your boundary like betrayal, because your boundary threatens their control. The silent treatment is not always needing space. Sometimes it is a lesson they want your nervous system to memorize. The sarcasm is not always humor. Sometimes it is retaliation made deniable. The sudden coldness is not always confusion. Sometimes it is conditioning. Here is the defense. Do not chase reconnection at any price. If your boundary triggers punishment, the problem is not that you said it. The problem is that it worked. Stay calm. Shorten your responses. Repeat the limit once. Then step back and let their behavior reveal itself. This is the sharper reframe. Manipulation is often less about getting a yes and more about making no feel unsafe. Once you see that, many confusing interactions become painfully clear. So what do you do when you recognize 3 or 4 of these signs in the same person? First, stop chasing perfect proof that would satisfy someone committed to misunderstanding you. Manipulation survives because it keeps you busy proving what you already know in your body. Second, reduce over-explaining. Long defenses often feed the very dynamic you are trying to escape, because every sentence becomes fresh material to twist. Third, move important conversations into clearer formats when possible, especially writing, where memory cannot be bent so easily. Fourth, build a private standard. Respect, consistency, accountability, and room for your no. If a relationship repeatedly fails those 4 tests, awareness is not paranoia. Awareness is protection. You are not becoming cold when you notice these patterns. You are becoming harder to confuse, harder to rush, and harder to train against your own instincts. That is real power. If this sharpened your radar, subscribe and stay close because the next video goes deeper into the hidden language of control. Send this to someone who keeps second-guessing themselves around the same person. And if you want a practical next step, watch the next episode and learn the phrases manipulators use when they need your permission without asking for it. Until then, protect your clarity. Protect your pace. Protect the version of you that no longer mistakes confusion for love, guilt for duty, or silence for peace.